In today's video, I am going to explain anatomy and function of quadriceps. Quadriceps, that is big knee muscle on anterior thigh. This is quadriceps. Quadri means four, right? And ceps means head in anatomical terminology. Four heads, that means four fibers, four muscles in this muscle group. I'm going to tell you what kind of muscles there are in first part. Alright, this is rectus femoris. Rectus femoris. This one is vastus medialis. Vastus medialis. Plus, deep to rectus femoris, there is kind of intermediate muscle. That is vastus intermedialis. You don't see this muscle because there is rectus femoris superficial to vastus intermedialis. Okay. Next one, actually last one. This is it. This is vastus lateralis. These four muscles together, that is called quadriceps. Now let me explain their origin and insertion. Let me explain rectus femoris first from closer view. This is rectus femoris. This muscle is kind of exception among four muscles. Why is that? Because origin of this muscle is from pelvis. Yep, pelvis. Don't see that, but this is about here. This part is AIIS. AIIS stands for anterior inferior iliac spine. This is bony bump on anterior part of pelvis. Okay, this is very famous. But if you look anatomy book in more detailed way, actually there is reflected fiber. There's kind of bifurcation here. This reflected fiber attaches on edge of this hip joint, edge of pelvis. So let's say edge of hip joint. Edge of hip joint on the pelvic side. It's very close to hip joint. What can I say? So if this reflected fiber gets tight, that may aggravate hip joint function because it is literally close to hip joint. Of course, this fiber attaching on ASIS may trigger hip problem, but as equally this reflected fiber, kind of bifurcated fiber, is important for hip dysfunction. That is why I said rectus femoris is kind of exception among these four muscles. Okay, rectus femoris, only muscle of quadriceps that is from pelvis. Other three muscles originate from femur. See that? This is vastus intermedialis. This is vastus medialis. Okay, vastus intermedialis, which you didn't see from previous picture. This is rectus femoris that covers vastus intermedialis. Now you see that. Now you see vastus intermedialis. Vastus medialis, vastus intermedialis, vastus lateralis, they are all from femur. Okay. Now I see vastus lateralis is very important. Why is that? Because this muscle is very close to greater trochanter. Greater trochanter. Where is that? That's here. Many muscles attach around greater trochanter, such as gluteus medius, such as gluteus minimus. Deep lateral rotators of hip attach to greater trochanter. So if tissues around greater trochanter get tight, that affects for hip movement. Then vastus lateralis attaches to kind of anterior and lateral part of greater trochanter. And if you go to the back side, the kind of posterior fiber attaches to posterior part of greater trochanter. Very important, don't you think? There's of course myofascial connection around bony structure. if vastus lateralis gets tight, this tightness may affect for, let's say, gluteus medius, like gluteus minimus, deep lateral rotators of hip. That is why I focus on vastus lateralis around this greater trochanter area. I think this is quite important. Anyhow, other three muscles, vastus medialis, vastus intermedialis, vastus lateralis, originate from femur. Particularly, vastus lateralis is important muscle, in my personal opinion. Okay, let's go to insertion. Insertion is simple. All four quadriceps muscle attached to tibia. There's big bony bump on tibia. This is tibial tuberosity. You see that? You know tibial tuberosity. You know where it is. There's big bony bump below patella. Now, if this part gets dysfunction, if there's too much stress around tibial tuberosity, there's chance for Osgood Schroeder. You know that? The big bony bump on tibia. All four quadriceps muscles attached to tibial tuberosity via what? Via patella. Patella and this connective tissue. This is patella tendon. Patella tendon. So these four muscles attached to tibial tuberosity via patella and patella tendon. Then there's another important thing. There's connective tissue around knee joint. It's very important connective tissue. I want to focus on this kind of a longitudinal connective tissue. This medial part is called medial patellar ligament or medial patellar retinaculum. Medial patellar retinaculum or ligament. On the other hand, lateral one is lateral patellar retinaculum. Lateral patellar retinaculum. Vastus medialis and vastus lateralis attaches to here, tibia, particularly medial condyle and lateral condyle via these connective tissues. Let me explain that again. Vastus medialis and vastus lateralis attaches to tibia. This is medial condyle and this is lateral condyle. They attach to tibia via connective tissue. What kind of tissue is that? Medial patellar retinaculum and lateral patellar retinaculum. They go to medial condyle and lateral condyle of tibia. Don't you think this is very, very important to analyze knee dysfunction? Why is that? Because dysfunction of connective tissues, dysfunction of ligaments around the joint may aggravate joint dysfunction, right? If ligament, connective tissue of joint is aggravated, knee stability, knee movement can be aggravated. Now you know vastus medialis, vastus lateralis attaches to tibia via connective tissue. I believe this is very important. From previous video, like 1 year or 2 years ago, which I uploaded, I didn't say that. So this is like a revised version of quadriceps. I didn't know that, but yep, anatomy book said vastus medialis, vastus lateralis attached to tibia via connective tissue. Very important thing. Now let me talk about its function real quick, very quickly. Alright, what is the main function of quadriceps? That is knee extension. Knee extension. This is the strongest knee extensor. Well, there's tiny muscle around knee joint, but that's really tiny muscle. This muscle almost doesn't do anything for knee extension. Thus, you can say quadriceps is the only muscle for knee extension. Very, very strong. That's it? Maybe not. Well, there is one exception in quadriceps. What kind of muscle is that? That is rectus femoris, right? What is origin of rectus femoris? That's from pelvis. That's from AIIS and edge of hip joint. Do you remember? This muscle originates from pelvis. Thus, this can move hip and pelvis. What kind of movement for hip? That's hip flexion. Hip flexion. Then what kind of movement for pelvis? This muscle can bring pelvis to anterior tilt. Anterior tilt. See, quadriceps is not only knee muscle, but it's important for hip movement and pelvic movement. See, actually quadriceps is very important, very interesting muscle if you know a detailed anatomy. Rectus femoris originates from pelvis, AIIS, and close to hip joint. Then, let's see, go back to the knee picture again. Vastus medialis and vastus lateralis attaches to tibia via connective tissue. I didn't know that. If I didn't read anatomy book in more detail, I wouldn't know that. So studying anatomy is fun thing. I think it is quite interesting field of studying. I hope today's anatomy helps for your anatomy class, clinical experience, training experience for many things. If you liked today's video, please hit the like button, comment and subscribe. See you next video.